Hey everybody, what's up? I'm back. Well, I asked some of my friends out there what they thought I should do a video about, and one of them was like, well, you haven't done one about near-death experiences, so I'm going to do one about near-death experiences. Now everyone's heard about the near-death experience where, someone almost dies and they're like in the hospital and they see a bright light and whatever happens. We've all heard about these things where someone comes really close to dying or was like brain dead for a short amount of time, and then they get revived, and then they have this recollection of, oh, I went to a very peaceful place and blah 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 blah. Well, my opinion on near-death experiences is they're bullshit. Why do I say they're bullshit? I don't know 100% that they're bullshit. I never know 100% anything. But I'm going to go ahead and say they're most likely bullshit. And here's a couple of reasons why. First of all, every time someone has a near-death experience, surprise, it just so happens to match up with the ideology that they've already accepted before they had the near-death experience. Very rarely will you have a Hindu, have a near-death experience and talk about Jesus. And you don't have Muslims talking about Jesus when they have near-death experiences. Everyone pretty much has an experience to what, that's closely related to what they already thought was going to happen. And, this shouldn't be a real big surprise because we already know that when traumatic things happen, the brain sometimes compensates by, creating alternate versions of reality for us to accept. Sometimes that's multiple personalities. Sometimes your brain just, blocks the memory out completely. Your brain has different mechanisms for coping with really traumatic events. Now, dying has to be, one of the most traumatic events that anyone could ever experience. I mean, I think we can all pretty much agree that as far as traumatic events goes, coming close to death is bad, but actually fucking dying, that's like the ultimate in traumatic events. And it's not really a surprise to me that the brain would kind of make up like a really nice, hallucination in order to help, the consciousness deal with the fact that it's dying. This is not a surprise that the brain would, go into like a state of, holy crap, do something crazy in order to preserve, try to preserve the sanity of the person and blah, blah, blah. So we already know that the brain will do crazy things when presented with traumatic instances in order to try to protect itself. So it's not really a big surprise that, during the biggest traumatic event that anyone could ever experience, that the brain is going to come up with a nice little hallucination to make you feel a lot better about the fact that you're fucking dying. Okay? Now, if everyone that was having these near-death experiences was tapping into like the same afterlife, same plane of existence after this one, if everyone was tapping into the same thing, you'd think they'd all come back with, stories that are similar. But that's not what we see. Like I said before, we pretty much see everyone experiencing what they thought they were going to experience when they, before they had the near-death experience. If you were Christian, then you had these Christian things. If you were like a new agey person, maybe you'd had crystals or geometric fractal patterns or something. I don't know what the new agers do when they have the near-death experience, but it's not really a big surprise to me about the near-death experience, and it's not really hard to explain. A lot of people are like, well, how do you explain that? And it's like, well, we've all heard the stories about people floating above and, able to see all this stuff and, able to recall it afterwards. But we've tried to do real, studies by putting like, pieces of paper that have, phrases on them on top of, like, you know, something, and it's like, okay, it's like you had the near-death experience. Can you tell us what that piece of paper said on top of that bookshelf that no one really, that, you know, only 2 or 3 people know about, and blah blah blah, and you know, they can't ever do that. They can't ever, you know, it's always things that they could have always just been aware of anyways. So it, you know, nothing amazing or spectacular ever happens. And if anything amazing or spectacular was to happen, like, oh, you know, they guessed the, you know, person, you know, that was in another room or something, it's like, well, you know, there's a high, you know, how often is that person in that room, you know, to begin with? Is that his office or whatever? It's like, you know, there's always a more mundane explanation that's far more likely than the, you know, my spirit magically floated off and I was able to, you know, see all this stuff, and then it got jerked back to my body from, you know, with the silver cord or whatever the, you know, whatever the fuck they're gonna say happened. But the near-death experience to me is just, you know, the brain, you know, trying to cope with some really bad stuff happening to it, you know. And you know, the other half of the near-death experience may just be the fact that your brain is fucking up and dying, and it can't process information, you know, correctly anymore, and it's generating, you know, as close to reality as what it possibly can, given the information that it's given. So, you know, either of those two explanations to me is far more likely than, you know, your ghost, you know, flew out of your body and you know, did some stuff and then it got yanked back. You know, there's never been any, you know, evidence for a ghost or a soul or a spirit or anything like that, you know, that can actually go out and do that stuff to begin with. So that makes it even more implausible. Okay, so that's my quick 7-minute thoughts on near-death experiences. So I appreciate everyone who's, you know, started watching my videos. I've gotten quite a few comments and I've been contacted by quite a few people recently, so, you know, yay for me. I'm still a big nobody, but I'm, you know, slightly less of a nobody now. But anyways, you guys take it easy and I will yell at you later.